What's happening, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. So let's get right into it. In my opinion, the heyday for Clemson versus South Carolina, okay? The heyday came in 2013. Does anybody dispute this? Anyone at all? You know, like in 1987, South Carolina was number 12 and Clemson was number 8. In 1979, South Carolina was number 19 and Clemson was number 13. The number of years in which both teams were ranked are few, if I'm honest with you. Like you look at this, the football rivalry, Clemson, South Carolina, number of years both teams are ranked are few. You know, it's like one team is good, one team is not. Both teams are not. Both teams are mediocre. I know that that game is massive no matter what, no matter who's there, no matter what's going on. But you kind of go through the history of this rivalry as I like to do, and you find that it's very, very inconsistent in terms of both schools being on a level. You know, you've got 1987. You have got, let's see here. You've got the early 2000s, the 2000 on the nose, Clemson 16, South Carolina 25. And then you have that break in years in between before Steve Spurrier got to South Carolina, the Jeff Scott, the Lou Holtz, that era, the Tommy Bowden era for Clemson, and it's kind of a little bit of a wasteland in terms of what you get results-wise, right? So, but I look at that year, 2013. As far as the eye can see, this is the only year that this game, the Palmetto rivalry, and I know you guys here in South Carolina say, Mark, do not call it the Palmetto rivalry. It's Clemson, South Carolina. Clemson's name goes first now because they won the most recent game of the rivalry. That is rule of sports fandom number 3, okay? Clemson versus South Carolina, their name goes first. The heyday was 2013, in my honest opinion. Only year where you had two top teams meeting. And, I looked at, this last season, okay? And you look at all the consecutive years of Clemson being ranked. It dates all the way back to 2010, the last time Clemson was unranked in this matchup. So 14 straight years of one team being ranked. But guess what the ranking was this last year when the two teams played? Almost, and I'm going back here because Clemson has been ranked and South Carolina has been ranked. The last year, neither team was ranked was 2008. All right, that's a long time ago. Last time before that, 2004. Turn of the millennium, essentially, right? This last year, Clemson was 24th and South Carolina was unranked. And, you got to be careful about how you phrase this. Diesel, if we phrase this for social media a certain way, it's going to get a lot of negative reaction. And I would prefer that we have kind of the nuance of the discussion on the show today. Do you guys believe that Clemson and South Carolina, football in this state, is in danger on some level of becoming irrelevant? Now, I'm not saying it's ever going to be irrelevant to you. Of course it matters to you. Of course it matters to me. Of course it matters to all those who live here. But when you have a rivalry game where neither team is ranked, it is not nationally relevant. In 2008, the game was not nationally relevant. This last year, the game was almost not nationally relevant. Clemson's back. Frankly, South Carolina is tired from carrying you guys around. It's tired. Just ranked team after ranked team after ranked team after ranked team after ranked team. The last time the Gamecocks were ranked when they played Clemson was all the way back in 2013. It has been a long decade, and it has been a sad decade. that also produced a South Carolina win, as you know, a season ago, 31-30. That score brings with it as much pain and hostility as 28-3 does to the Atlanta Falcons. The pain level is similar. It hurts, causes pain and tears and sadness. But guys, where are we in terms of football in this state as it pertains to relevancy? I think this coming year is going to be paramount for Shane Beamer. It's year 4. You've already got some fans spewing nonsense that 6-6 would be a success. Get out of here with this. That's half the problem with the Gamecock program. 6-6 is a success. Year 4, 6. I mean, look, if that's your feeling, if that's your standard, you are the parent who celebrates a child bringing home a C or a D on the report card. A B grade in some households is met with a celebration. A B grade in other households is met with a spanking. Do you think 6-6 would be considered a success at Clemson? You think 6-6 is considered a success at Florida? Up your expectations, up your results. That's one of the founding tenets of our show. Okay? That's one of the things we say time after time after time. But if you look at the trend, right, like where is Clemson trending? Guys, I know Clemson fans, this is hard to hear, but you're trending downward. You know it. I know it. Everybody knows it. Clemson is trending downward. Okay? For a variety of reasons. It's not just because of the transfer portal, but the last 3 years, there is a downward trend.
Yeah, the truth is your reasons, your excuses, they don't matter. That's what's happening. It's one of what's that called? The 7 stages of grief, and one of them is bargaining. You're in the bargaining stage. Yeah, but this is going on. Yeah, but that is going on. Yeah, but that's bargaining.
Right, and Clemson is in the bargaining stage right now. I mean, Diesel, that's well said. The next step, Diesel, is anger. I would argue that they've kind of moved towards that category lately. They're angry. They're defensive about how things are going. Diesel, I tweeted something today, and I like this because it's confusing to people. Sometimes I like to be confusing. It's fun. Clemson Burner said Deshaun Watson was a better quarterback for us than Trevor Lawrence, and I said it's a factual statement. Deshaun as a player is better than Trevor Lawrence, and on any level. He's better than Trevor Lawrence in college, better than Trevor Lawrence in the NFL. I believe he's finding himself in Cleveland, and I believe you're going to see he's much better than Trevor Lawrence this year. And when you say something like that, it's like, I don't know what we think about this. He's saying something bad about one of our guys, but he's saying something good about the other. So, guys, look, we always say admission is the first step toward recovery. You are on a downward trend. I don't know what trend South Carolina is on. I know that South Carolina won a couple of top 10 games a year ago. I know that some allege that they received signs which may have helped in the winning of those games. This is not Mark Ryan spewing something. This is, documented now that Connor Stallions gave alleged signs to potential future opponents of Michigan. South Carolina just happened to beat Clemson and Tennessee around the same time. Do we have proof? No. Do we give South Carolina credit for those victories? Yes. But guys, those games are a blip in the tenure of Shane Beamer. They're the best blip, but they are a blip. And in the last year, the question that we needed to ask was, could Shane Beamer maintain it? Could he maintain the level of success? Did he really raise the bar? Or again, was it just a passing fancy? That's what it was. My friends, do you believe that Palmetto State football, Clemson and South Carolina, is in danger of becoming irrelevant? Try to look for a minute, if you can, outside of our lens here in our beautiful state. Okay? Try to think about rivalry rankings, national television time slots, wanting to avoid that noon time slot for Clemson, South Carolina, wanting to avoid getting stashed on ESPN2. I mean, where are we in terms of our rivalry in this state? I don't know that it's I think it's at a crossroads. I don't know that it's at a strong point. And I believe this year is going to tell us a ton. You know, if Shane Beamer goes 6-6 this year, what does that say? That says, okay, year 4, that might be what South Carolina is going to be under his leadership. Best case, 8-4. Worst case, 5-7. Enjoy an existence of something everywhere in between. For Clemson this year. And guys, look, I'm not trying to get on here and just spew negativity. We have a responsibility to be truthful with you. Let's be honest. Is the vibe about either head coach overly positive right now? Did Tyler and Spartanburg ever happen before now? Okay? Clemson fans are quietly concerned. South Carolina fans are openly supportive, but also quietly concerned. You know, there's not a lot of boisterousness. There's not a lot of bragging. I was telling Diesel, you know, right before the show began today, I'm like, there's a quietness among both fan bases. You know, a lot of times there's braggadociousness at this time, Diesel. It's a feeling of pride within the program. I think both programs and their fan bases are in a place right now where they're pensive, where they're contemplative, where they're thinking, where they're concerned, and rightfully so. Because this last game was almost the first one since 2013. Was almost the first one since 2008 where neither team was ranked. Top of the rivalry, 2013, both teams in the top 10. Clemson number 6, South Carolina number 10. But Clemson number 24, South Carolina unranked last year. Guys, this is what we do in this business. We follow trend lines. You know, is a show tracking upward or is a show tracking downward? That's what we do. We look at trend lines. Don't stick your head in the sand. Ostrich style. You know, keep your eyes wide open on what's going on here. Because this season, we're going to find out if Dabo Swinney is moving Clemson back to the bar that he set, or if this Clemson is the new normal. This year, we're going to find out if Shane Beamer is a long-term solution for South Carolina or yet another stopgap. I would argue, guys, in terms of relevancy, this coming season might be the most important this rivalry has had in over a decade. This coming season, the trend line is not looking good. You know, it's one thing for Clemson to carry the rivalry. It's another for neither team to carry the rivalry. You know, South Carolina beating Clemson last year might be nothing more than a sign of Clemson sliding back to mediocrity just a little bit. What do you guys say? How do you say it? Do you believe that football in this state is in danger of sliding into indifference, sliding into irrelevance? 71307 on the text line is where you guys can get to us. Also, the Renewal by Anderson fan phone is there for you at 844-326-3663. That's 844-FANFONE, the Renewal by Anderson fan phone. Guys, just being real with you, shooting straight, keeping it a buck. You know, that's what we do. That's our MO at this station. If you want flowers and mints, there's a station for you that does that. If you want the truth, you can't handle the truth. We're the outfit for you. You look at the trend line. I mean, you couldn't come closer to both teams being unranked last year if you tried. And that is the trend line for both Clemson and South Carolina right now. All right, my friends. Coming up next on the show, my firm opinion on what Clemson athletics, South Carolina athletics are doing right and doing wrong. All of that is next here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. An open and honest conversation about where Clemson and South Carolina football lie today. Texter says, Mark, already irrelevant. USC is a hellhole to live at, and Clemson is in the middle of a pasture. With all the attractive cities and money out there, now it's obvious. If you're a Clemson fan, how does that make you feel? If you're a South Carolina fan, how does it make you feel? Sir, can I ask you who texted this in? Where does your fandom lie? All right. Look, I said from the outset, I didn't think that NIL was something that truly benefited Clemson. Clemson is aware of that. So what do? They come up with their own institute for branding. I've been there. Guys, it's awesome. Like, they have the highest tech equipment, super nice studios. You can record, devise, make your own podcast. You can come up with one that's the most popular broadcast in this area, more popular than this show, okay, in this area. You can do all of that. And you can put your name on it. You can become a proficient as a broadcaster. As a matter of fact, in that branding institute, they have more equipment and resources to make yourself a good broadcaster than I had during my entire stint at the University of Florida. Okay, like they've got everything right there. Diesel, I actually can't wait for you to see it. They have like a state-of-the-art 6-figure photography studio, you know, with all of the green room type stuff, green screen type stuff, graphics, etc., props. They have the podcast recording studio with Tiger branded couches and purple carpets and all of the fixings and trimmings that you have there. Why did Clemson do that? Clemson did that because they know, you know, like their name, image, and likeness, their wow factor, right? Their value to players is not going to come by way of glitz and glamour, by way of the big city lights, by way of a large fan base's donation pool. They know their success is not going to come from that. So what they're doing is they're providing value added. Hey, you come here, this is what you get. The experience here is what you get more so than the cash. Again, the question to you guys is, do you get the sense football in this state is in danger of becoming irrelevant. Clemson slide continuing. Okay? Clemson slide continuing. South Carolina kind of still trying to find itself. Year 4 under Beamer. You'd hope they'd be further along than they are right now. All right, my friends. So let's do this. What are Clemson and South Carolina doing right and wrong? What are they doing right and wrong? For me, and I'm taking a broad stroke look at the entire athletic program here, okay? And look, I understand we're in a media landscape now where anything critical you say gets jumped on. But I got to be honest with you, okay? What I believe Clemson and South Carolina are doing right, okay? Clemson first. Clemson's taking a stand for what's right in college athletics. Clemson's saying, no, we're not going to take part in the greed. Who knows if the lack of transfer portal guys is because Clemson doesn't have money or if it's because they refuse to spend the money. Maybe they know it's something they can't really compete in, so they don't bother to take part in even a player. Clemson's men's soccer team, best in America. Clemson's use of the transfer portal in basketball, getting Joe Girard to come here. Okay? Those are all things the Clemson athletic department is doing right. Where is the Clemson athletic department failing? I want to get to one more positive here before we get to the yang. Fan experience is outstanding at Clemson. As a matter of fact, it's the best fan experience I've ever experienced. You know, it is friendly. It is inviting. You guys get to go on the field and run down the hill at or before or after every single game. Most fans never get to do that in their lifetime. Do you realize that? The red tape that exists at every other school, you don't get to go on the field. You never get to go on the field. You know, the only reason I ever got to go on the field in college was I was in the band, okay? And the only time my friends were ever on the field is, and I hope the statute of limitations on this is passed, we snuck into the stadium at 1 a.m. and kicked field goals. That's the only time their feet touched Ben Hill Griffin Stadium grass. The fan experience, man, at Clemson is second to none. It's just, it's a glorious day. You know, as a matter of fact, to anyone who didn't believe in God, I'd bring them to Clemson on a fall Saturday and just have them observe that scene, and I'd ask them, how do you feel about God now? I mean, just look at this scene. Just take this in. How perfect of a day is this? Incredible. Where Clemson is off, where they're swinging and missing right now, my best guess, my firm opinion, basketball head coach, Brad Brownell. Brad Brown, LLLLLL. 3 tournament berths, 13 years. You guys have told me your expectation is to make the tournament more years than you miss. He'd have to make the dance 8 years in a row for that to be the case. That's a problem. This is an interesting one, Diesel. My second knock. This was the case when I did this, and this is the case now. They don't take any calls on the postgame show. I don't understand that. That they don't allow any calls on the postgame show. I was told it was because, they want the message to be positive. They don't want, in other words, Tyler and Spartanburg on their postgame show.
Yeah, it's not like you don't have the ability. It's not that hard to engineer that. You got to have people there that can engineer that for you.
Right.
And make that happen.
Well, Diesel, it
doesn't happen because you don't want it to happen.
Having done it, I can tell you that it's there. The technology's there. I hosted a lot of those shows from studios, and it's just the only time a call was allowed was when you had a contest of some kind. Fans were not permitted to take part in the post-game festivities. And where I come from, there is no point in having a post-game show if you're not going to hear from your audience. That's what a post-game show is. Pre-game show is to tell you what you're about to see. Post-game show is to vent, kick around what you just saw.
I can go online and read the stats. I don't need somebody to read it to me.
Yeah. Like I've never understood that. I really feel like, Clemson, you got a really positive thing. You got a really positive fan base. You got to let calls into the postgame show. Number 3, I think where Clemson is swinging and missing is that they have not prioritized all sports. The feeling you get from Clemson is that football is priority number 1 through 10. Well, Mark Ryan, it should be. What do you expect? I think a little bit more weight and a little bit higher expectations should be seen by other sports. All right? I'm encouraged by what I see from Eric Bakich in baseball. Love what I'm seeing from men's soccer. Love what I'm seeing from the growth in women's softball. Okay? But I think the standard of excellence that football has set should apply to the other programs as well. And then for me, lastly, Clemson is swinging and missing, obviously, in the transfer portal for football. Well, you say, Mark, you can't have it both ways. You, Mark Ryan, said that Clemson has taken a stand for what's right in college football. They're not going to do the transfer portal bidding thing. They're not going to poach players from other teams, right? Commitment at Clemson means something. I value that. I just don't know how well you can compete with that being the case. Biggest reason being that these transfer portal guys on other schools are 22, 23 years old going up against your 18 and 19-year-old kids. We're hearing from high school kids that are worried that their spots at schools they want to go to are going to get taken up by transfer portal guys. Why would they take 17-year-old me when they can take 22-year-old that guy? Needs fixing.
Yeah, but those kids keep committing to those schools anyway.
They do. Let's see here. South Carolina has had a state-of-the-art recording studio for years now, and they have a barbershop. Texter, look, that's all added value. Okay, it's not as valuable as having a branding institute, which Clemson has, but cool. Recording studio, added value.
I remember watching Anish Shroff. This is one of those quick, interstitials is what they call them, the little thing they run between when you come back from break and when the action starts again. And Anish Shroff was trying to record a hip hop, verse in the South Carolina recording studio. He's not a good rapper.
No?
And he's a great play-by-play guy. Anish is not a good rapper.
Now, who is better, Anish as a rapper or me as a beatboxer, Diesel? Don't make me do this again.
Give me a beatbox. I need to hear this again.
Okay, here you go. Oh,
Anish is better.
I'm climbing up.
Anish is better. Anish is better.
Oh, come on.
That sounds so wet and it sounds gross. Plus, beatbox people, they do it loud so that people can rap to it.
Oh, okay. I got you. Mark, some of my coworkers, my feelings are hurt now, by the way. Some of my coworkers from Brazil went to their very first American football game, and they went to a Clemson game. They were stunned at the beauty. That's what I'm saying. That's the kind of thing that will turn you on to life, going to a game there. It's incredible. So positives and negatives on Clemson. How about South Carolina? Okay. Now, again, Gamecock fans, be very, very attentive here, okay? Because I'm about to heap some love on you, all right? Appreciate the love that is coming your way, all right? Gamecocks, buy-in to your program is fantastic, your athletic program. Your coaches, through winning, through excitement, through pep rallies, they all subscribe. You can kind of tell the personality profile Ray Tanner looks for. He looks for hype guys because all of those coaches get tremendous buy-in from you. And there's a skill involved in that, right? You know, one of the characteristics of good leaders is people follow what they say. Your coaches get great buy-in from you. Positive number 2 for South Carolina in Columbia. Basketball on the whole. Are you serious? Number 1 basketball program in America is South Carolina, Dawn Staley. You know, we thought that Tennessee and UConn were going to be the best women's programs forever. Then Dawn showed that wherever she goes, winning is going to follow without any of the sketchiness of Urban Meyer. I was about to say, like, she reminds me of Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer could win at Idaho. His plan, his policy, right? But there's some sketchiness that comes with it. Dawn is all the dubs, none of the sketchy. It's beautiful. Lamont Paris, all he does is have a roster that could best be described as the island of misfit toys. On pace to make the tournament. In Joe Lunardi's latest bracketology, the Gamecocks are a 6 seed. 6 seed. Ahead of Clemson, a 7 seed. How about it? You know, the basketball program there. Lamont Paris has seemingly figured out how to tap into the momentum generated by the women. Duke football has never figured out how to tap into the momentum generated by Duke basketball. And then finally, for me, the third positive within South Carolina's athletic program is loyalty. You know, like everyone affiliated with that program. Hashtag forever to thee. Spurs up. Hashtag Gamecocks. The fan base. You guys, the university has customers for life in you Gamecocks fans. The loyalty is incredible. That's a massive positive, okay? And it's shown me that even though I believe you should be conditionally loyal to your team gives you a good product, you're loyal. Your team gives you a bad product, you close your wallets. You guys don't look at it that way. To you, your team is your family, and you're going to support them rain or shine. Some of you tell me that's being a fan. I say being a smart fan is not giving up your resources when the product stinks. That forces change. But you guys are loyal no matter what, to a fault. And that's pretty cool. So South Carolina positives: buy-in, basketball, and loyalty. Buy-in, basketball, and loyalty. On the negative, how about fan base tact? Okay? The bottom 10% of the Gamecock fan base might be the roughest portion of any fan base I've ever encountered in a 14-year career. This is not just my opinion. The Gamecocks lead the nation in ejections from their stadium. Still. Guys, you know, like if you have an opinion like that, best back it up with fact. So here you go. One out of every 1,000 Gamecock fans that attends a football game at Williams-Brice Stadium is ejected. 1 out of every 1,000. What is in the water over there? Oh, I know, Diesel. It's poopy ice cubes, right? Remember that? What was getting into the water at the concession stands? Number 2, strike against South Carolina. Their football coach's maturity. Shane, grow up. Grow up. Stop fighting with radio hosts. Stop kicking the walls. The wall is undefeated in that exchange. Stop acting irritable. Stop blowing smoke up our skirts that, hey, man, the fact that a transfer left you and you took that transfer back means it's a hell of a statement for your program. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Okay? Just, mature a little bit. Grow into the role.
She ran off, got some dirty, dark, and deep, and then she came back to me. Shows how good I am.
Yeah. That's what she said. Number 3, identity. What is the identity? What's the identity of a Gamecock fan in general? Okay? Like in this building, let me tell you what they say about the Gamecock fan base. They're like, Mark, go easy on them. They've been kicked a lot. That's the saying in this building. Okay? Go easy on them. They've been kicked a lot. Is that your identity? Is your identity that of the forlorn? Are you just the sad sack fan base? Is that the identity here? Okay. Or what's the identity of the football team? How come in year 4, we still don't know what Beamer's identity is as a coach? That's a problem. Wouldn't you agree? Like, what is the identity of the football team? What do they do well? I don't know. I still don't know. Do they pass block well? No. Do they run well? No. Do they defend well? No. Do they recruit well? Kind of. But really, they were a one-man team last year in Spencer Rattler. Number 4, results. Consistently not there. Results consistently not there. As a matter of fact, Steve Spurrier's stretch of 5 straight wins, 2009 to 2013. Gosh, Diesel. If you had to guess, Diesel, before Steve Spurrier, when was the last time South Carolina won 2 straight games against Clemson?
Oh, I'm going to guess back in the George Rogers era.
I think you're close. It is 1969 and 1970. George Rogers was when? Early 80s? That's a little off. But 1969 and 1970 was the last time South Carolina beat Clemson 2 consecutive years in football. You know, social media is now in this place where I can just say that and it will inflame Gamecock fans. Just posting a fact will inflame Gamecock fans. How crazy is that? How absurd is that? And then, to me, the final knock on the Gamecock program is small-minded thinking. Small goals. Hey, 6-6 would be successful. Small-minded thinking. If anybody is critical of us, you're not welcome. This is how small-town high schools behave. Okay, this is not major SEC football. You can be critical of Clemson, and Clemson behaves largely like an NFL franchise. They want you to be fair. They don't want you to make it personal. If you are critical of a call at South Carolina, they have very small-town, small-minded thinking. And my worry for you, if you're a Gamecock fan, is that the program is not going to elevate until that goes away. You need to be, the reason we say Offsides is the show that gives you both sides is because all sides of the discussion are welcome here. But in Columbia, only one side is. And I say that's a big, big problem.
George Rogers, by the way, 1977 and 1980. I was close.
There you go. Yeah. How about that?
Just in a wild guess.
Up next on the show, your takes. Did I hit with that, my friends? Positives, negatives, Clemson and South Carolina, athletic programs. Spend some time thinking about that. How did I do? Up next, I will tell you if both Clemson and South Carolina basketball are going to get wins this weekend on the hardwood, if one is, or if neither. My name is Mark Ryan, and he is Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Great to have you guys with us. So if you're just joining us, we've posed the question to you to start the show today. Are Clemson and South Carolina, the football programs, in danger of becoming irrelevant for the first time since 2008? And we've highlighted positives and negatives within the athletic program. All right, here we go. Via the text line today. Let's see here. Mark, the last time they took calls on a Clemson postgame show was August 31st, 1996, a day that will live in infamy. Real Pat McNeil, give me some elaboration there, if you would, please. U of SC identity is diapers, pacifiers, and crying, a texter says. Texter says, I hope I misunderstood you, Mark. We held a 5-year stretch over Clemson while Connor Shaw was there. Mongo, you did misunderstand me, Mongo. Not counting the Spurrier era. The last time that South Carolina has beaten Clemson in back-to-back seasons, okay, was 1969 and 1970.
That was buffoonery. That was complete and total buffoonery.
Yeah, the buffoonery in Mongo is that you weren't paying attention.
Texter says, about wrecked my car laughing at dirty, dark, and deep. Mark, you nailed it. As someone with family ties to Carolina, but not really buying in, I agree 100% with the description of South Carolina. Texter says, Mark, you forgot women's soccer that made the Final Four for Clemson. Just gymnastics is looking good. Women's rowing received top 20 votes the last 4 years. Texter, with all due respect to those sports, they're not revenue-generating sports. Okay? Look, when you're speaking of the athletic program, you know, you're speaking of the programs that make you grow and make you dough. That's what you're talking about here. Texter says, it's only diapers, pacifiers, and crying because we raise our fans from the time they're babies. Nothing says crying more than purple and orange. All right? Nothing says crying more than that. All right, guys. Some massive games on the hardwood this weekend. You know, like South Carolina is poised to be not only in the top 25, maybe in the teens, maybe in the top 20. But my question is this: should they fall at Georgia tomorrow, 1 p.m., SEC Network, should they fall? Do they fall out of the top 25 altogether? You know, I'm looking at these other records. Worst record to be in the top 25. Alabama has 6 losses, and they're in. 6 losses. Then you have, let's see here, Illinois is Creighton. Creighton has 5 losses in their 13th. Make it make sense. Make Creighton 5 losses in 13th. Illinois 5 losses and 14th.
Okay, who are those 5 losses to?
I don't know. Let's see. Creighton Blue Jays play in the Big East. The losses are to Diesel, Colorado State, Nico Medved, right? Medved. UNLV, Villanova, unranked. Top 10, Marquette. Number 1, UConn. 2 of the losses are good. Okay? 2 of the losses are good, but they have 5 losses, Diesel. Meanwhile, South Carolina's beating Kentucky and Tennessee.
South Carolina, as of last Monday's poll, was first in others receiving votes. So they're sitting at 26. What you guys got it? You guys got to get your egos in check. Like your football, your basketball team has had half of a good season.
But these
and hang on.
Yeah.
You've had half of a good season, and you're screaming your heads off. We're not going to get a respect. Well, you build respect over time. All of you. You got to relax. Just let it happen, okay? Just let it happen. You are going to be in the tournament. You're going to be in the tournament. So, like, just chill. Just chill about where you're ranked and the disrespect. I mean, the statistical analysis, this is not opinion, okay? The statistical analysis has you in the 40s in both the Ken Palm and the net. So explain to me why you think you should be 15 to 20 spots above where the statistical analysis says your team is. Oh, we've only lost 3 games. Yeah, but the math says you're just not that good. I mean, you're good. I'm not taking anything away from you. You're good. You're beating really, really good teams. But the statistics say you're not that good.
Yeah, I think they're wrong, Diesel. I think the stats are wrong.
Based on what?
Based on their one-loss record. Based
Okay,
on the
but yeah,
conference they play in.
but give me some actual math that tells me the math is wrong. Not my heart. My subjective heart tells me that the objective math is wrong. That doesn't make any sense, and frankly, it doesn't matter.
Well, no, the math is 18-3, Diesel. The math is 18-3 in a major conference. Okay, I don't believe these computers or the analytics are particularly accurate. Do you? I mean, as a fan of a team who's perpetually screwed by the numbers.
Yeah, but this doesn't have anything to do with me. Stop trying to but me when the math in multiple statistical analyses tell you virtually the same thing. You're telling me that both the Ken Pom and the net are both getting it wrong in the exact same way.
Yeah, I'm saying South Carolina the last week is better than a top 5 team. And they're better than a top 6.
Yeah, but it's not based on the last week. It's based on the whole season.
Okay, well, the whole season they have 3 losses. Diesel, open your eyes, brother.
My eyes are open. The math tells you the answer.
What math?
Your heart is telling you one thing. The math is telling you something else. And you're saying, I just frankly don't believe it. And then I can't help you with that.
Well, this is the first time in my life, folks, that I've been told that my heart is with the Gamecocks. I was today years old when that happened for the first time. You know, Diesel, sometimes the analytics are wrong. They've been wrong a lot in baseball. They're wrong a lot now. You know, like we've talked to Bob Ritchie about how he feels about the net ranking and how he feels about Ken Pom. They're wrong. You know, this is a really good team. Kelly Ford's rankings this week said the Gamecocks are the 67th best team. Well, that 67th best team just beat the 5th ranked team and the 6th ranked team. You know, and they're getting better. They're not getting worse. They're getting better. You know, I mean, this team this year only losses Clemson when they were in the top 25, Alabama, who's now in the top 25, and Georgia. Georgia is probably an NIT team. Your worst loss of the year is to a 15-7 NIT team, probably. I'm just telling you, like, dude, this is a good team. You can play the denial game, but I'm telling you, this is a really, really good team. So I think South Carolina, with revenge on their mind, goes to Georgia this weekend and gets a win. I think Florida goes to Texas A&M and drops one. Aggies and Gators are both on the bubble. And I like Clemson at home to get a big dub over Virginia. Neither team is ranked. Virginia closer to that than Clemson. Virginia 3rd place in the ACC, but coming to Clemson, massive game. Look, you win this one at home, Clemson fans, you start making your March Madness plans. You do. All right, my friends, we've got Brent Beard coming your way next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. What's happening, my friends? It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Fantastic to have you guys with us. Joined right now by the Heisman Trophy voter himself, Brent Beard. Look, guys, you know, you're hearing from big-name people in the sport that we all love. And they're all saying the same bloody thing. Big name coaches there's going to be a mass exodus of big game coaches. And I'm not just going to hate on every opposing or dissenting viewpoint. I know the folks, the horde on social media is going to say, well, these coaches have been leaving for higher dollar figures for years. You know, now that the players get a cut, they want to leave the sport entirely. I can predict what you're going to say before you get there. Coaches are leaving because they're not able to have any continuity whatsoever with their teams. You heard Coastal Carolina coach Cliff Ellis say that. Coaches are leaving because they've got to re-recruit their roster every year. Once you think you're done recruiting, now you have 4 times as much recruiting to do. And it's fascinating to wonder, especially as it pertains to our own local icon, Dabo Swinney, exactly where he falls on the close to hang them up scale. Again, Brent Beard, Heisman Trophy voter, is on the line. Brent, I always do appreciate your time, my friend. Some really interesting times this week with Jeff Hafley becoming the DC in Green Bay. Jim Harbaugh, Nick Saban, not outwardly saying the current college football is why they left, but it seems to be implied. Chip Kelly, rumored to be interested in Washington's offensive coordinator position. Brent, as we bring you on today, who are the coaches who we should keep an eye on, these big names that could potentially leave?
Grubb, the offensive coordinator at Alabama, now coming over from Washington, has been mentioned for the Seahawks offensive staff. Now, he was out recruiting today, or at least that's kind of what the word was. My understanding is, now look, I'm not saying they're going to be, and we don't need to panic about this, but I understand the issue. I don't think we're going to have 50 of them leave necessarily, but I think we're going to have some of them leave, and have heard, probably like you two have, that there could be some retirements between now and after signing day. We got to remember signing day is actually next Wednesday, even though there will be very little really accomplished during that time and announced. But there is a possibility of some more retiring that would frankly surprise us. And look, there are a lot of things these coaches have got to deal with this December calendar, and that would take some pressure off of them. There are things they can do if they're willing in order to make this situation not as daunting as it is right now.
Brent, in your opinion, can NIL and the transfer portal be reined in? I mean, we've seen over the past few months to a year just the systematic dismantling of a lot of the NCAA's biggest rules when it comes to NIL and the transfer portal, all based on legal grounds. So how do you get a hold of something like that without making players employees and giving up massive concessions that would entice them to want to give up the freedom of movement and the freedom of making unlimited amounts of money?
I'm not real sure, Diesel, that we're going to be able to stop that train at this point, because I think we're going to do it. That doesn't mean we have to like it, but I do think we're going to have to go that we're going to more of the NFL model, meaning collective bargaining and contracts and so forth, the way this thing's going now. Now, what I have more confidence in this new allegiance here of the Big Ten and the SEC getting something done with this than, frankly, I do trying to do something with the NCAA or the Congress. You've got some pretty sharp minds in both these conferences. They've got the money, and I think that's one of the things they're working on with this, the plans that they've got to get together, and I think they've been doing it before it was announced today, that they would be determined, and they would have the power and the momentum to get something done. That may only be for those two conferences. I don't know, but I have more confidence in that working than I do anything else right now.
Brent, we've seen Georgia win the national championship with very minimal use of the transfer portal.
Yes.
But Georgia is a different animal than Clemson. They play in the SEC. They have more television revenue coming in. They have the largest recruiting budget in the country. Do you believe that a national championship at a place like Clemson is feasible while largely eschewing ignoring the transfer portal?
Well, I think it's possible. And again, until Dabo gets more than either 0 or 2 transfers, we're probably not going to know. But I would say right now, if you're going to do it, and you can do it, now would be the time, because I could see probably, and in other words, unless we do something with recruiting and changing the calendar, I think we're probably going to get more and more transfers on these teams. It's a quick fix. The problem is you've got to do it. If you do it and you start it, you're going to have to do it continuously, and that just goes along with it. But yeah, I do think if you've got the right coaches developing players, that at this point you could still win a national championship with growing your own roster. Yes.
Brent, I find something really interesting about a certain section of your notes here about North Carolina and how they are looking at the potential breakaway from the ACC and the Big Ten and the SEC. Just out of curiosity, if all of the schools that are reported to want out of the ACC all sued the ACC at the same time, do you believe the ACC would want to fight on all of those fronts all at the same time? As of right now, it's just Florida State that's brought a lawsuit against the ACC. They've sued back, which is going to be very, very expensive for the conference. So if 8 schools were all suing them at the same time, do you think the ACC would want to stand fast and fight 8 schools at once?
Well, probably not, but in theory, they may not have a choice if they want to survive. I mean, obviously, this is why they brought in Cal and the SMU, et cetera, to try to help them if they're going to have defections. I think they know they're still going to have that. Right now, all the eyes are on FSU, obviously. My understanding with this is FSU, if you total this together, as far as what it would take for them to get out, there's more. I know there's a $120 million exit fee, but the people who have done the math have said it's probably closer to $500 million. And I think the thing they're trying to do is at least get that cut in half to where the ACC gets some money and they're able to get out. And if the rest of these schools who really are kind of behind them, do they have the resources and the wherewithal to be able to do that too? No, Diesel, it would stress their systems to the nth degree. I'm just wondering, is there something the ACC could do in letting some of these schools out? I question right now. I don't think they could bring anybody else in that would be as good as the schools who are leaving, but could they bring in enough schools in order to survive another, 10 years until they either figure out what they're going to do or they know that they're just going to fade from existence?
Brent Beer joining us here on Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel, the fan upstate. We're in the land and the time frame of alliances in college football right now, buddy. And the Big Ten and the SEC are going to partner to address college issues. Brent, first question is, what does this mean? Number 2, do they actually have the power to do anything? Is this part of potentially breaking away from the NCAA? Can they enact rules on their own that only those 2 conferences have to follow? What does this mean to you?
what it means to me is that this is the beginning of what you're talking about. Now, how long it would take, don't know. But yes, and I think they would probably deny that, and I would understand that. But I think what it eventually means is yes, they will have the money, and they will have the resources, and they will have the coaches, and they will have the players to where I don't know, Mark, if they're going to break away as much as they're going to be that they're going to become the top tier of college football, if that makes sense. I'm sure there's another word you can say for that, but I think really this is where this is going. Look, this is not. They're just not setting up tea and cookies for next month, and I think they've been meeting now for several months. I think they're working on their own, as Diesel said a minute ago, their own NIL and transfer situations. Now, would it be easy? No. Is it possible? I think it would be yes. I mean, who would have enforcement? How would they, if someone breaks rules, how would they deal with that? I'm sure that's probably stuff that they are deciding, but they are, I think, have reached the point where these two conferences don't want conferences that make less money than them tell them what to do. And to their credit, they are beginning to meet and beginning to decide some of these things. It really does make you wonder if this thing goes the way it's looking, could they end up just playing each other in these two conferences? Now, but regardless, this is a shot across the bow for the other conferences who are not SEC and Big Ten. They need to start meeting, and they need to start planning, and they need to come up, particularly the non-Power 5, they need to come up with their own playoff system in TV contract, and they're only going to do that if they get together. Now, how easy would that be? I'm sure it wouldn't be, but that's something. I mean, Diesel and Mark, let's just be realistic here. If the other conferences besides the Big Ten and the SEC, if they don't start planning, what's going to happen to them?
Brent, who are the big names out there still available as we come up to official National Signing Day, which is really late signing day, as much as Mark hates calling it that? It is second signing day. Who are the big names out there that could still shake things up?
I was asked this question the other day, and I got on with 24/7, and I went through their 150, and this is amazing, but every single one of those guys had already signed, or they were 100% committed to their school. I've never seen that before. Frankly, and I'm not saying there's still not a Ryan Williams who is kind of doubly now committed to Alabama, that he could go to Ohio State or Auburn or somewhere like that. But listen, there are going to be several schools next Wednesday that are not even going to have anything for signing day because they are done. And they're looking at 25, they're looking at 26. And I think that's such a shame because I remember how excited we were and how we followed it. And look, we'll follow it in case something happens. But we're at that point right now to where, this was predicted to happen, that the second signing day would be virtually anticlimactic, and it very well may be.
Brent Beard joining us here on the show. Brent, a couple of years ago, some of our newer listeners are unaware that you, during my single days, were trying to set me up with characters that you played on this show named Candy, Mandy, and Sandy.
Indeed.
Now, here is my question for you, Brent. It's only fair if, how the turntables on you here. Okay. What school in your history of covering college athletics has the best looking Candy, Mandy, and Sandy walking around campus?
Oh my!
A lot. So we can say fan base. Okay. What
Yeah.
school has the best
Yeah.
looking fan base? Candies, Mandies, and Sandies walking around in your lifetime of experience.
Well,
okay?
I would. I mean, it's certainly the SEC. But I mean, I'm same way with you guys. I'm going to throw out Florida.
Thank you, sir.
Ole Miss.
Okay.
And Florida State, I think would be another. That would those three would keep you busy for a while, right?
Florida, Ole Miss, and Florida State. We've gotten the medal stands from Brent.
Brent, who do you see filling the vacuum in what was the SEC West? Okay, one of the top 2 or 3. So it's going to take some time to get used to this.
It is.
But with Alabama gone, who's going to step up and fill what's at this point, I guess, second best in the SEC? And that's weird to say too.
Well, it is. I agree with that. I mean, frankly, Georgia's not going anywhere. Obviously, they have so much talent, and that's not stopping. Now, Ole Miss this year could be something special. Frankly, Jackson Dart comes back. I know they lost Junkins, but a lot of that receiving crew comes back. This is the second year with that defense in that staff they've got. So I think you could get some fascinating things out of them. We're not used to this yet. I don't think Oklahoma is ready, but I think Texas might be. I mean, obviously Texas is a playoff team, so they almost have to be, wouldn't they? So, that's a wonderful question. But you're right. Our mindset has been that way since 1992, and it's just going to be hard to change. So I'm going to say those. I mean, Alabama's going to be up there. They're going to be better than people think they are. Missouri's got enough coming back to make them dangerous as they were. Nico at Tennessee, and they're waging a war with the NCAA right now. By the way, Nico, listen, guys, I heard a Tennessee beat writer say this week, and I'm just taking this with a grain of salt until we really see him. But someone asked him on a national interview, how good could Nico be? And this is Lama Leva, and I know I'm not getting it. Mark probably knows it, but he said Nico could be maybe as good as Peyton Manning before he leaves Tennessee.
Unbelievable. Brent, in your opinion, to what degree, like Jim Harbaugh and Nick Saban, is the lay of the land in college football entirely why they left? Part of the reason why they left? It feels to me, even though they're not admitting as such. I mean, Brent, when I asked you, I remember asking you a year ago about Nick Saban, and you said he's nowhere close to hanging them up. So what would have accelerated that process other than college football? So with specifics to Jim Harbaugh and Nick Saban, to what degree are their moves, based on what's going on right now in the sport?
I think probably for Harbaugh, at least a third of it was the lure of winning a Super Bowl. Another part of it was, and I don't think he would ever admit this, was to get away from the NCAA coming investigation. Well, I mean, they're coming, but with investigation, but what would the sanctions be? And I think probably a third of it would be just the stuff we're going through now, the NIL and the portal. For Saban, a third of it for Saban, maybe even more, was he was struggling to get coaches to join his staff. And that sounds incredible, but he called some guys, wanted them obviously to join the staff, and their comment was, "Coach, we'd love to, but we need a 2 or 3 year contract, and we think you're only going to be there another year." So that had a lot to do with that. I think NIL and transfer also had a lot to do with Saban leaving too. I mean, he said in an interview with Reese Davis, and Reese asked him that question. He said, "Well, I really don't want to go there." Well, what that tells me is, Mark and Diesel, if you don't want to go somewhere, does that tell you that was probably if not the answer, it was close to it. So I'm just dividing this up into compartments. And I think another thing for Saban would be, I think Saban thinks that he loves to win championships, he loves to recruit, but he loves the game, and he thinks that, and I think I would agree with him, I think he thinks that he is an agent of change for the better in college football. And I think besides just being on ESPN, maybe on game day or something of that ilk, that he thinks that he could make some major changes for the good in the game, because that's something that's always been important to him. Do all those things make sense?
Most certainly, my friend. Most certainly. We appreciate you, pal. Great catching up with you. My friend, I'm going to give you a call real soon. Okay? We got to catch up.
Well, please do. I know we've communicated. And guys, I'm leaving here with this. Mike Martin died yesterday, and I know we don't talk much college baseball right now, but we were really grieved over his passing. Tremendous, one of the greatest baseball coaches ever. And listen, I hope this doesn't sound silly, but I'm actually grieved over this. We lost Carl Weathers, Apollo Creed, today at 76 years old.
Yeah.
And look, guys growing up in the Rocky movie era, listen, and this would be a good discussion question for you guys. If you're a guy, after you saw Rocky 1, the next day, if you didn't start sneaking out of the house and running at least around the block and going in the refrigerator and getting 2 or 3 eggs and putting those in a glass and drinking them, I would say you're lying. How about that?
Sounds good to me, my friend. Have yourself an awesome weekend. We look forward to next week, okay?
You too, guys. Take care.
All right, Brent Beard, Heisman Trophy voter, right here on the show. Up next, don't be surprised if ... this happens in the NFL. That's next. My name is Mark Ryan. He's Diesel. It's the Fan Upstate. Your answer to that question for the NFL, the rest of the season, the Super Bowl, the off season, like I think we can honestly say, right? We wouldn't be surprised if either team won the Super Bowl. Well, the only question is San Francisco's got more talent than KC. The only question is, are they ready to win the Super Bowl, right? That's the big $1 million question. But I've got a few ideas for you in terms of, do not be surprised if yada, yada, yada takes place. The first one, X, Y, and Z takes place. The first one for me is the following. For me, don't be surprised if Russell Wilson is no longer a Denver Bronco. I think Sean Payton this year got a very, very difficult lesson in, choosing a place of employment. Wanted to go to the Chargers, didn't go to the Chargers. He wanted to get back into coaching, wanted to wait for the Chargers. The Chargers weren't ready to fire Brandon Staley yet. They were a year later. Dean Spanos, the owner of the Chargers, is notoriously cheap. And I think Sean Payton kind of either through overconfidence or through just belief in Russell Wilson kind of overplayed his hand with what they have there. Best case scenario for Denver is mediocrity. Worst case scenario is they're really bad. And they've got like a hodgepodge of a roster right now. Best thing for them to do, I think, is to move on from Russell Wilson. There are some places Russell Wilson could go and be very successful. Pittsburgh might help them get over the hump. What about the new New England? Who's their quarterback? Okay? The New England. The New York Giants. You don't think Dable would rather work with Russell Wilson than Daniel Jones? There's spots out there for Russell Wilson where he could make a difference. I just don't think it's where he is. Denver would need Russell Wilson of the first 5 years in the NFL to get over the hump, and he's just not that dude anymore. All right, let's go to the phones. And Jason in Columbia chimes in next. Hey, Jason, you're offsides, my friend. What's good?
Hey, Mark. Good afternoon. Hey, man, I've really enjoyed the show today. I'm sorry I couldn't call in earlier when you were first talking about the
it's all good, man.
Of the rivalry.
Sure thing. No problem.
Yeah, one thing that kind of jumps out when you're talking about it is, and you alluded to this, and I'm not trolling here, I'm just being honest. If you look back over, the history of South Carolina football, I mean, Mark, they've only had 4 10-win seasons. So, I mean, in order for the rivalry itself to really be nationally relevant, the same way Ohio State, Michigan, some of the others, the Iron Bowl, I mean, South Carolina would need to, I guess, I was going to say duplicate, but it's not even duplicate. It's originate a level of national relevancy as a program that they have not done. You referenced the 2013 period. Certainly when Spurrier was there, those final 3, well, it wasn't the final, but those 3 11-win seasons in a row, they were absolutely rolling. And that, you're right, that was the last time that the rivalry on a national scale was relevant. And really the only kind of blips on the national radar is if what happens in 2022 where Carolina plays spoiler and winds up knocking Clemson out of the playoff picture. And Mark, I mean, as far as like the trajectory of the programs, I mean, you called it going into this season. I mean, there was a lot of talk about Beamer after those 2 top 10 wins. They fell on their face. I think that's looking ugly. Like you said, 6-6 might be a ceiling for next season. He's going to be on the hot seat, man.
But I would say, Jason, I would say, and I want to kind of go back and forth if we can here, my friend. So I would just say that Beamer, let's not call 6-6 a success. Okay. It's not. That's not a success. Yeah. I don't care if the schedule is hard. 6-6 could save Billy Napier's job at Florida. It's not a success. It's not a success for the Gamecocks in year 4. Would you agree with me, Jason, that if you have a rivalry game in which both teams are unranked, that's an irrelevant rivalry? That's the danger here, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it just means when you're talking on a national scale, certainly it would be irrelevant. Now, obviously, to those of us in the state, it's a blood feud, man, and that's where it's always been an interesting conversation because you even heard it during Clemson's college football playoff run. people would say, well, South Carolina needs to be good because the ACC is weak and Clemson needs to bolster their schedule. And what we found out is that's not true. Clemson went to 6 college football playoffs in a row, and South Carolina was largely terrible during that time. And I'll be honest with you, Mark, they're a true blood rival for me, man. If being a nationally respected, relevant rivalry means that South Carolina is frequently in the top 10, I don't want it, man. It's like my granddad used to say, dude, and he was a Clemson grad, a perfect football weekend. Our high school team wins Friday night, Clemson wins, and then Carolina loses.
So, Jason, riddle me this. You are firmly in the camp. You want South Carolina to be awful. You don't want them to be good so it improves Clemson's strength of schedule. That's a very interesting question, and everyone's got a different viewpoint on that. Do you ever root for your rival to be respectable so that the game is better? You say you want to roll over them 50-0 every year.
Absolutely. Mark, when they lost to the Citadel, I mean, that was just such a great moment in my life and in the lives of many Clemson fans. And that was 2015, but it feels like yesterday. And that will always live with them. And so those kind of moments, I mean, those are priceless in a rivalry. So I certainly see both sides. Look, if we were Duke, North Carolina in basketball, and it's an awesome, which is going to happen this weekend, there's something to be said for that. But at the same time, I have a hard time believing that Duke and North Carolina each pull for each other to be relevant. It just happens organically.
You got it. Hey,
and can I leave you with this, Mark?
Yeah.
As far as the Clemson trajectory, I have said to you, I've had concerns about Dabo adapting to the new landscape, but I would say that I am quietly confident. Based on some of the moves we've seen, the Garrett Riley move, even though it didn't pay off, that was a big power move when it happened. And then I think we're seeing the addition of Matt Luke and Chris Rump to this staff. Okay, he got rid of some of his guys and upgraded massively. And you look at the 2024 class rankings, there was a lot of talk about where's Clemson and South Carolina going to finish. Clemson wound up 11th in the 24/7 rankings, South Carolina 21st. Look at this year's class. It's very early, but Clemson already has 9 4-star players. They're ranked number 3.
Number 3 overall.
Rankings.
South Carolina has 1.
So,
and that just shows you, here's what we said about that, Jason, that there is demand to play at Clemson to the point where those guys want to claim their spots before their spot goes away. South Carolina doesn't have that demand there. It shows you Dabo is in one of those select spots for a head coach where he can select, not recruit. Scarlett Johansson doesn't recruit who she dates. She selects whoever she wants, right? That shows you that there's still a whole host of blue chip players that want to claim their spot while they still can. There's a demand to play at Clemson. Jason, great catching up with you, pal. Thanks so much for the call. Truly do appreciate you.
Thanks, Mark. Enjoying the show.
I truly appreciate you. Great to hear from you all the way in Columbia. Really interesting. Jason Diesel, I feel like Jason adds to the show. He adds to the show, and that's awesome. Adds context, adds insight, and typically a call on a radio show will be about 2 minutes. You see I let him go longer because I feel like he adds a lot, and the context is really, really good with what he's saying.
Well, yeah, the difference in Jason and your average caller is Jason either comes up with these opinions himself or he listens to a lot of different talking heads and forms an opinion based on an amalgamation of all of their points. And he remembers the details, and the details matter. Most callers, they just want to call in. They heard one person say something, they liked it, they want to call in, regurgitate it, and take a jab, and they're out.
So, Jason, I'll have you know that you have folks responding to you on the text line. Texter says, since Jason is living in the past, West Virginia just scored again. They hang a 70 spot on Clemson, right? I mean, that's
they did. They embarrassed them.
70 points on Clemson in that Orange Bowl, but that was just the start of the run, man. That was the start of the run. Let's hope we're not at the end of the run. What do I hope for? Diesel, I don't want to speak for you. I'd love to see a top 10 matchup between these two teams again. I'd love it to enter the top 10 I'd like it to be among the top 10 rivalries in college football. Now, in terms of the top 5 hate-filled rivalries, it's certainly there.
That's why people tune in, because they know it is such a heated rivalry. People kind of remember the brawl that happened on the field years back. They know that this is a heated, nasty rivalry, and that's why they watch it. I mean, it's not like Oklahoma State has been super even over the years. Oklahoma's been the daddy a lot of the time. So, yeah, they want to tune in and see what might happen. You want to get a little piece of Schadenfreude. Maybe you want to see the car wreck happen.
All right, up next, my friends, do not be surprised if in the NFL this happens. Is next right here on Offsides. We are the Fan Upstate. Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Fill in the blank for me. Do not be surprised in the NFL if. How do you end that sentence? Do not be surprised if. ... I shared with you, do not be surprised if Russell Wilson is no longer a Denver Bronco in this offseason, heading into next year. I believe that they realize that they're nowhere close, and Russell Wilson is not the guy to get them there. They need a reboot. They need a reset. They need to take a step back in order to take 2 steps forward. This one is going to surprise you, but perhaps it shouldn't. Do not be surprised if the Chicago Bears trade the number 1 pick or don't take a quarterback with the number 1 pick. You know, there is a feeling there, and I've spoken to a few friends in Chicago. There's the feeling there that Justin Fields is beginning to turn a corner. And so certainly you wouldn't say Chicago is the team with the biggest quarterback need, right? They're not New England. They're not Pittsburgh, right? They're not any of these teams that totally lack a quarterback. Atlanta. But should they want to move on, they could fetch something of value for Justin Fields. You know, the Atlanta Falcons have been bandied about as a potential landing spot, a potential return home for Justin from Georgia originally. Do not be surprised if ... Detroit makes it to the Super Bowl next year. Guys, they're right there. And I know it's easy to say, well, they just caught lightning in a bottle. You know, they won a couple playoff games, got an easy second matchup with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't think many folks realize just how close Detroit is and just how much of an advantage it is for them to play in the NFC. You know, the AFC, Josh Allen, Tua Tagovailoa, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Deshaun Watson, C.J. Stroud, Trevor Lawrence, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert. I mean, consider that for a minute. You know, the best that the NFC has is Jalen Hurts, who is not what other quarterbacks are throwing the football. Dak Prescott, who chokes when it matters. Jordan Love, who's very green, and not just because it's the color of his team. Kirk Cousins, really? Brock Purdy finding his way. Matt Stafford collecting the senior citizen discount. You know, like the NFC does not scare you in any way, shape, or form in the quarterback position. Detroit, Jared Goff, they, in my opinion, have one of the best ones. Don't be surprised if Detroit makes it to the Super Bowl next year. In fact, they just might be my pick to do so. They might be my pick to do so. I got to be real with you, man. I feel strongly about that. By the way, getting set for the Super Bowl next week. Got a lot. We're going to have a great week of shows for you next week, heading up to the Super Bowl. Kyle Shanahan here speaking on Christian McCaffrey. And is it not criminal that the Carolina Panthers did not get more than a second-round pick for Christian McCaffrey? Like in his prime, like at the height of his superpowers, you got a second-round pick for him. And again, why are you so frustrated if you're a Carolina Panthers fan? You turned down 2 first-round picks for Brian Burns. And then you accept a second-round pick for Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey's better than Brian Burns, better player. Kyle Shanahan says CMC has come so far.
He knows the guys' names. He knows the runs that we're calling instead of just guys pointing him to the direction. That was amazing. We didn't plan on playing him at all. I think he got here on a Friday afternoon. And then I told John, no way. But then when I talked to him on the phone and the way he was talking to me, I was like, we better send this guy a playbook. He might be playing because he's adamant that he can do it. And then when we played him, he was definitely right. So that was a sign of what we had. He was amazing in that game, and he's been the same dude ever since.
Shanahan continues on the importance of having veterans with Super Bowl experience.
All those guys, for the most part, were young guys, and it was their first one. And I think always when you go your first time, you experience a lot of stuff. But I think when you go your second time, you know all that stuff you experienced. It's about one thing. It's about what happens in those 3 hours. And I think it's real cool for those guys who have gone to be able to talk to players who it's their first time, kind of help them not get caught up in stuff.
Yes, there you go. The words of one Kyle Shanahan. Let us fast forward here to Bob Costas. This was in the tease for the show today, my friends. Bob Costas says there's no surprise why the Shield reigns supreme.
You know what? When it comes to the Super Bowl, where a lot of people who don't watch football all year long double the audience, even of the conference championship games, part of that is the halftime entertainment.
Yes.
A huge part of it is the commercials.
Yes.
So for people all of a sudden, because they don't like something about Taylor Swift, either they don't like the Chiefs or they've inferred that Taylor Swift might not be a Trumper, then they're annoyed by Taylor Swift. I can guarantee you that all this news on Fox News would not be happening if she was wearing a MAGA hat. Yeah. They would love it.
Oh, but look at all the new people she's brought to the NFL. You see young teen girls who are now watching football.
And it's hard to imagine the Super Bowl could have a larger rating, but in a small percentage, it may even up that. And in terms of merchandise sales, the Travis Kelce jerseys and all the rest, and the attention to regular season games, the NFL reigns supreme not only over sports, but over all of American entertainment. In a fractionalized universe, it's the only thing that consistently aggregates huge audiences. Like 90 of the top 100 rated television shows in a given year are football games, almost all of them NFL games. And so you would think they couldn't improve on that, but now they've tapped into another demographic.
The words of one Bob Costas. He's right. 90 of the top 100 American-rated broadcasts, 90 of the top 100 television programs in this country are NFL football games, right? NFL football games. So think about that for a minute, okay? But what is number 2? You know what number 2 is, my friends, in America? What would you guess? Number 2 most watched sport in the country, okay? In terms of, looking at the top 100 rated television shows or events or games. It could be the Grammys. It could be an episode of a show, like a singular event, right? Top 100 singular events. What's number 2 in America? The college football playoff. It's number 2. Okay? They are the silver medal. I'm going to scream this from the top of the mountain until all you guys hear it and believe it. When I was just starting in my career, the debate was who's number 2. Is it MLB or is it NBA? Guys, folks, it's not even close. It's not even close. College football is blowing them out of the water by the tune of 2-1, 3-1. Okay? So, understand this. You know, that the money is there. Ratings is but a snapshot. Ratings doesn't mean the sport is healthy. Ratings mean that people care. All right? And I'll tell you, you're taking us for granted with what you're doing, jerking around our sports the way you are. We've got the top 5 at 5 coming your way next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Thrilled to have you with us. A jam-packed 5 o'clock hour for you. What do you say? We get right to it. It is the segment that you guys call a driveway moment. The segment that you tune into every single day. We call it the top 5 at 5. The top 5 biggest sports stories of the day. The top 5 topics we're discussing. Ladies and gentlemen of the Upstate, Offsiders. The top 5 at 5 starts right now.
And now, the top 5 at 5.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hit it.
5.
At number 5, the Big Ten and SEC have formed a joint advisory group of university presidents, chancellors, and athletic directors to, quote, address the significant challenges facing college athletics and how to improve the student-athlete experience, the conference has announced Friday, per Heather Dinich, ESPN.
And I'll bet you not one of them has said, what about everybody else?
Yeah, and
that's not what they mean by challenges facing the sport.
Yeah, Diesel, I don't know what power do they think they have, or are they about ready to break away, form their own league, form their own rules because of the feckless, faceless NCAA Wizard of Oz that does things at their own leisure years later? You know, and so when you have a situation, okay, where you have a cheating incident that may or may not take place, that school doesn't have to worry about it for years, because by the time the NCAA rules on said offense, no one's going to care anymore. This move, the Big Ten and the SEC aligning, is significant because it reflects a growing relationship between the two largest and wealthiest conferences and their respective commissioners as the balance of power continues to tilt in their favor in the evolving collegiate landscape. It's really interesting. Greg Sankey, Tony Petitti, now working closely together. Remember that whole dumb Big Ten, Pac-12, ACC alliance, anti-SEC alliance? How long is this going to last? Who knows? But it's fascinating because it shows you that they may not be playing by the NCAA's rules for much longer. Next up.
4.
Big weekend of basketball in the state. South Carolina at Georgia. The most disrespected team in the country is the Gamecocks. Diesel and I disagree. Diesel, can you summarize your feeling on the Gamecocks?
Yeah, multiple metrics, analytic services all have South Carolina outside of the top 40. The Net and the KenPom both have them in the 40s, and you tell me that Kelly Ford's rating has them in the 60s. You're saying all of them are wrong and they should be ranked. I'm not saying that they haven't played a great season. I'm not saying that they have a ton of losses. I'm not saying that their wins over top 10 Tennessee and Kentucky aren't spectacular wins. I'm just saying if multiple statistical analysis services all give you the same answer, either you're saying they're all wrong, they're all stupid, or you're saying you're letting your heart overweigh your head.
So, yeah, to me, the mathematical equation that matters is South Carolina beating Kentucky, South Carolina beating Tennessee. These models have blind spots all the time. You know, Josh Pate, toward the end of the college football season, said, I'm not going to predict Washington anymore. I've had a blind spot on them. My model has had a blind spot for them the entire year. The equation I care about is wins and losses, baby. Who have you beaten? South Carolina is as impressive as any. Now a 6 seed. A 6 seed. In Joe Lunardi's most recent bracketology, 6 seeds are reserved for those teams he ranks 21st through 24th.
I do believe that we will see them ranked, though, in the next AP poll, which I assume comes out every Monday because the last one came out on Monday.
Yeah, it does. It comes out Monday, Diesel, but here's the thing. What if they lose to Georgia? Do they lose their ranking then? You know, are they still unranked? You beat Kentucky, Tennessee, 2 out of 3 games. 2 of the last 3 games. Missouri is a win and sandwich between those. Tomorrow is a losable game. Will they lose it? I don't think so. I think the Lamont Paris train rolls on, brother. And I think the Gamecocks enter next week's poll in the teens. I also think Clemson, massive game tomorrow against Virginia. Fundamentally sound. The kind of team that the only way Clemson wins this game is if they flush the negativity, the noise, and the mess. You've got to be cohesive. You got to be organized to win this game. Virginia wants to muddy up the tempo, wants to play their slow-down defensive battle. They're brutal to watch, Virginia, but they're so doggone good at what they do. Clemson wins tomorrow, a home game. They're going dancing. I guarantee it. Okay? Guarantee they're going dancing with a win tomorrow. My Mark Ryan promise to you. Next up.
3.
Okay, so when we look at this, and I want you guys to take some inventory on this, okay? When we look at the Clemson-South Carolina rivalry, all time, long term, the last time they met as 2 unranked teams, okay, 2008. It's been 15 years since that happened. This last season, Clemson was 24th, so almost unranked, and South Carolina was unranked. If you have 2 unranked teams playing in a rivalry game, you have a rivalry that is not relevant nationally. Now, I'm not saying it's not going to mean something to you. Of course it's going to mean something to you, to me, to all of us who live here in this great state. But are you concerned at this point that football in this state is on the road to irrelevancy? South Carolina is in year 4 of Shane Beamer. We still don't know what to make of him. You know, Kyler Murray was just in year 4 as a starting quarterback in the NFL. And the Arizona Cardinals still don't know if they have the guy. If you don't know if you have the guy in year 4, that's kind of an answer, isn't it? Clemson undoubtedly is on a downward trajectory right now. It doesn't mean they can't turn it around. Doesn't mean they can't climb back up. But guys, you know, there's a value in being able to be objective here. And I think, unfortunately, this rivalry, if Clemson continues down the downward trajectory, if Shane Beamer proves not to be a difference maker, is about a year or 2 away from national irrelevancy. Agree or disagree? Let us know. Next up.
2.
At number 2, I gave you my positives and negatives for Clemson and South Carolina's overall athletic programs. Buckle up. Here you go. Clemson, positives. They're taking a stand against the tyranny, against what is tearing apart college football. They're not taking part in the ripping players from other teams. They're not tampering with other teams' players. They're not inducing players to come to Clemson with payments. They refuse to do that. I admire that so much. I really do. Number 2, men's soccer, outstanding, national champions. Number 3, the transfer portal in basketball, where it is utilized to bring in a guy like Joe Girard, who I believe is going to be the difference between Clemson making the tournament, which they will, and Clemson missing the tournament, which was last year. And then lastly, Clemson Athletics Department. The fan experience at Clemson is incredible. I got to be honest with you guys. In terms of the fan experience, it might be the best I've ever encountered. Why? There is no red tape. There is no rope between you and your heroes, you and your stars. Fans are on the field. Fans are running down the hill. It feels like a major community event where no one at the event is more important than anyone else. It's an incredible feeling. You know, like you want to get right with yourself. Go to a Clemson game in the fall, man. The golden leaves, the sun, people having a great time, treating you like family. It's a fantastic place for a game. You know, at my university, my alma mater, the only reason my feet ever touched the grass inside Ben Hill Griffin Stadium were because I played in the band. Okay? That's the reason why. The only reason my friends' feet ever touched the grass at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium is because we snuck into the stadium at 1 a.m. to kick field goals. We hope the statute of limitations has expired on that. Other schools have a rope between them between the team and you. Not at Clemson, and it creates an ultimate fan experience. What are the negatives inside the Clemson athletic department? The basketball head coach. Need I say more? Their post-game show for football doesn't take phone calls. I've never heard of that before. I still can't believe that's the case. Why? Can someone explain why to me? You know, like I know they want to control the message, but the point of a post-game show is to hear from your fans. I don't get that. Number 3, doing a better job prioritizing all sports. It feels like football is priority 1 through 10 at Clemson. You know, like set some higher standards for sports like men's and women's basketball. Number 4, the transfer portal football. Well, Mark Ryan, I just heard you say you were proud of Clemson for taking a stand against what's tearing apart college football. I am. I do. I am proud of them for this. The same token, I have doubts that you can win at the highest level, eschewing the transfer portal, ignoring it completely. And that's, my friends, what Clemson's doing. On the South Carolina side, the positives in the athletic department, they get tremendous buy-in. You know, the coaches, the successful coaches at South Carolina have the same personality profile. They really rally up their base, and it works. Number 2, basketball, men's and women's. Ray Tanner, great job. You know, none of us thought it possible that anyone but Tennessee or UConn could have the number 1 women's basketball program. And Dawn Staley's showing you that she could be number 1 anywhere. It's just phenomenal. Lamont Paris, brother, I'm glad I was wearing socks because you just blew them off. Number 6 seed, wins over number 5 and number 6 in the last week. Incredible. And loyalty. You guys are loyal to a fault. I mean, the loyalty you guys show to your team is unlike anything I've ever seen. You guys live #forever to thee. And that's something that I hope your program never takes for granted. You know, I always advise you should give conditional loyalty to your team, only unconditional loyalty to your family and close friends. If Florida gives me a crappy product, I stop going to the games. I hit them where it hurts in their wallet. You guys go rain or shine. You really are forever to thee. The cons about South Carolina's athletic department. The fan base, a portion of it, lacks tact. They lead the nation in ejections from Williams-Brice Stadium. That's no lie. Gamecock fans are ejected from their own football stadium more than any other fan base is from theirs. 1 out of every 1,000 Gamecock fans ejected from Williams-Brice Stadium. Number 2, area of weakness, South Carolina athletics. The football coach's maturity. Stop getting in beefs with radio show hosts. Stop kicking Gatorade coolers and breaking your foot. Stop trying to pull a fast one on us, trying to convince us. I mean, if this isn't catfishing, I've ever heard it. Gaslighting is the word. This isn't gaslighting, right? Hey, man, this recruit leaves us, comes back. That's a great sign. It shows something. It shows we've got a hell of a program. Come on, man. Nobody buys that. Nobody buys that. Guy goes to FSU, comes back to your school. You took him back, which I never would have done. It's not a sign that your program is great. Number 3, lack of identity. Why are we in year 4 of the Shane Beamer regime? We still don't know who they are as a team. What does Shane Beamer want his team to be? What do they do well? Number 4, results. Number 5, small-minded thinking. Small-minded thinking, essentially focusing on the fact that they kind of behave in some ways like a small-town high school football team. You know, like a really small-town high school football team. In the sense that, like, if you have any criticism at all, like they just shut the doors. They shut the doors. Clemson isn't like that. Houston Texans, my former stop, isn't like that. You could be sitting at a Texans game writing a critical column of the Texans while you're there. And they serve you and they give you food and they welcome you there and they say, we hope you had a great time and all this stuff. It's, you know, when you act as though anyone critical of you is going to be blacklisted, that's small-minded thinking. And finally,
1,
do not be surprised in the NFL if your big NFL offseason takes. What do you think we're going to see? I'm saying don't be surprised if Russell Wilson is no longer Denver's quarterback. I think Sean Payton now realizes that's not going to work. He bit off more than he can chew. They're nowhere close. Russell can still help some teams. I think he'd be a big upgrade to Pittsburgh. Okay? I think it'd be a big upgrade to New England, maybe the New York Giants. But Denver needs 26-year-old Russ, and they're not getting him. Don't be surprised if the Chicago Bears hang on to Justin Fields and either use the number 1 pick on someone like Brock Bowers or trade the number 1 pick entirely. There's a feeling in Chicago that Justin Fields has really turned the corner. And don't be surprised if the Detroit Lions make the Super Bowl next year. Best record in the NFC, 12-5. Record of the Detroit Lions, 12-5. 8 of the top 10 best QBs in the league play in the AFC. The NFL had no great teams this year. Seriously. No great teams in the NFL this year. Kansas City's in the Super Bowl. They were 11-6. San Francisco, 12-5. It's actually one of the worst the best teams have ever been in the National Football League. Isn't that interesting? I think we're in for a great Super Bowl. I think it's going to be incredibly competitive. I think we're going to get a test of San Francisco's maturity. Are they ready to beat a team like Kansas City, who's going to play smart, inventive, creative, not going to beat themselves? But make no mistake, San Francisco has by far a more talented roster. And those are today's top 5 at 5. Now it's your chance to chime in, which you can do at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-FAN-FONE. That's 844-326-3663 on the Renewal by Anderson fan phone, FAN-FONE. Also, the text line 71307. Just start your text with the word fan and away you go. You can get to us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube at The Fan Upstate on every one. Please like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to us on YouTube. And finally, email. You guys can all email the show. Mark Ryan, that is MARC Ryan, at thefanupstate.com. All the different ways you can get in touch with us here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere. What do you say? Coming up next, another side college football is becoming a two-horse race. I'm Marquise Diesel. It's Offsides, the fan upstate.
Stream's great. See you back on Monday. Remember to share this around every time you hear us talking about a topic that you think your friends might like. Make sure you share our link to our YouTube stream to somebody else. That way we can keep growing this thing.
I appreciate you guys. Love you guys. Have a great weekend. All right. Take care.